just gonna rip this one take. Y'all not ready for this one take? Okay. I got something to say. Yeah, there are gonna be changes happening to this channel. Not a ton of changes. Nothing like super. Nothing about the operation of this channel is going to be changing. It's just the name of the channel. But the name of the channel kind of has a lot to do with the the name of the channel being changed is something that I've kind of come to very through some a kind of like circumspect process. So I'm going to read a statement that I wrote about it, and yeah, just to explain what's happening. Okay, so sorry. Spacetown has been a part of my life for 15 years. There are so many parts of my time in music that I remember so vividly. Learning about the chiptune scene from watching Reformat the Planet on a shitty laptop in college. Sitting on the BART on the way home from my first live chip show, which was Anna Monoguchi, Minus Baby, Mr. Spastic, and Crash Faster. And if you know, that's a lineup. So yeah, and deciding that I wanted to start making chiptune, and thinking about the words Spacetown Savior at night in bed in my parents' house, and it just feeling right for the kind of music that I wanted to make. I didn't really know what kind of meaning either of my names had for me. Spacetown and Spacetown Savior always felt like this kind of vague, undefinable thing that eluded my attempts to grasp what they were. Part of the difficulty was that the names were, well, kind of silly, but more than that, they felt like a kind of question I was asking myself to guide the music I was trying to make. Music that seems to change seemingly every time I picked up the Game Boy. Where was Spacetown? Why did it need saving? Who was saving it? And what happened after it got saved? I'm writing this going back through my old releases in those early years, and God, who was I? Between 2011 and 2012, I put out 3 EPs, 3 LPs, a release of covers, and a nearly 30-minute mix that was essentially a straight ripoff of what IAYD, now known as Alex DL, was doing in his late Studio B era. How excited must I have been to be this prolific? I was writing all this music and playing all these shows in dive bars and tiny little venues, and it was the best thing I could have ever done for myself. When I changed my name from Spacetown Savior to Spacetown the first time and started making music that was a slight step away from chiptune into a more hybrid sound, it really felt like me finding my voice. The album Ephemera is almost 10 years old. That's incredible to think about. More than anything, Spacetown as a name was something that I was striving for. I wanted to write music that felt like it lived up to the name, even if I didn't know what the name meant. Writing music for the last 15 years has felt like a continual process of self-analysis, trying to find an identity, feeling comfortable with what I landed on, realizing that that didn't quite fit, and then trying something else. I was just a chiptune artist at the beginning, then I called myself trance, then I called myself trance-styled, and then I started making techno. In a lot of ways, this process mirrored how I came to my identity more broadly. Maybe it was the whole process, actually. I feel like I've spent my entire life trying different outfits on to see if anything fit me perfectly. I was one of maybe 5 Asian people in Gilbert, Arizona, outside of my family that I knew. Then I was one of so many Asian people in California. I was a kid who played piano in Yamaha group lessons just because it was something my mom made me do. And then I was a teenager in California winning a couple piano competitions. I was a kid who just liked playing video games, and then I was a person who wanted to make them. I was single, then I was with someone, then I was married, then I was a parent, and then I was a single parent. I was a child of Vietnamese immigrants, and then I was a child of Vietnamese refugees. I was a Vietnamese person, then a Chinese person, then a person of Teochew descent. I'm none of these all of the time, but I'm all of these some of the time. Adek is how you pronounce my name in Teochew. It's what my parents called me at home, and for a long time it felt like a kind of secret code for who I was. I went out into the world to try all of these identities on, but when I came home, all I needed to hear was Adek, and it felt like it fit the most, even if I couldn't really explain why. For a long time, I've been kind of ashamed of my lack of knowledge around my own culture, even as I've been outwardly vocal about my heritage and where I'm from, as it were. I didn't really use my Teochew name outside of the home because I didn't feel like I knew enough about my heritage to live up to it. I felt like an imposter using my own name outside of the house, and it took me a really long time and a lot of study about the ways that colonialism and imperialism really does screw us all up to understand why. I didn't really understand much about Teochew people or culture. I knew that they were relatively diasporic in Asia, but I didn't really have any kind of cultural markers of Teochewness or any way to really identify whether something was more Teochew than it was Chinese or Vietnamese or Thai or Cambodian. When I asked my mom why I couldn't really find anyone else who spoke Teochew, she told me that a lot of Teochew people didn't outwardly identify as Teochew and mostly assimilated into the culture they ended up in. I was struck by how similar this was to my own cultural experience in America, where for a long time I didn't go out and tell people I was Vietnamese until they asked. Having learned all of this, I'm growing to realize that the one consistent aspect of my own identity has not been any single marker. It hasn't been my nationality, my heritage, the language I speak, the interests I have. It hasn't been the music I like, the art I make, even the fact that I'm a parent. Rather, the only consistent aspect of my identity has been my search for it. I think of my journey in dance music as a constant pursuit of trying to find out what it quote unquote is. Starting from the outer edges of Halcyon and On by Orbital, burned onto a CD by a crush I had in middle school, that also contained a snippet from Paul Oakenfold's Essential Mix in 1999, recorded at Rojam in China, and ever slowly inching my way toward an understanding of the space through trance via the In Search of Sunrise and Universal Religion mix series. Then SoCal rave massives, then the Bay Area dance scene, then house music, then going to movement in Detroit, and finally learning about all of the origins of this music that has been part of my life for so long. Only to realize that techno has become diasporic in a way that is perhaps more true to what techno actually is than maybe even the originators intended. I realized that this journey through dance music and my journey with my own cultural heritage is too similar to ignore. Maybe this is just what my life is, an attempt to know something unknowable. For the longest time, I didn't feel comfortable adopting or using a word or name or concept until I knew enough about it to claim an expertise. It wasn't until I realized that this discomfort extended to my own Teochew name that I understood just how long I'd been holding back parts of myself that needed to exist outside of me. If I can't know these parts of my life enough to claim expertise, I can at least try and share them with people, right? The last half a year has been filled with some really tough, big life changes. My life has changed in so many ways in the last few months and years that the only thing that has consistently helped me through is sharing these parts of myself with other people and being open about myself. In this spirit, I've decided to drop the Spacetown label, and I'll be adapting my Teochew name Adek as my artist name moving forward. I don't know everything about my name or my heritage, but I want to share it with everyone anyway. Over the next few weeks, I'll be switching to this name on every platform that had Spacetown as my artist name. I'll be keeping both my Spacetown Savior and my Spacetown Bandcamps online, but I'm going to change the name of my Spacetown Bandcamp and will release things as Adek moving forward. I want to thank everyone who's ever listened to a Spacetown song or bought my music, anyone who's come to a show I've played, anyone who's talked with me about music, booked me for a show, anything, honestly. If you're a supporter, and if you're listening to this, you probably are, then thank you. Sincerely, Adek or Spacetown. Yeah, I will see you in the next video.